To make concrete paving stones, the raw materials are first brought into the factory. Sand and small stones, otherwise called aggregates, are delivered by truck and dumped into outdoor receiving hoppers and then brought into the factory on an inclined conveyor belt. The cement powder is also delivered by truck, but is blown up into large silos on the outside of the building. As the sand enters the building, it is loaded into indoor silos according to the type and size of each aggregate. This carefully controlled storage of all the raw materials is necessary because we need to follow a recipe very closely when making the wet concrete. It's kind of like baking. The aggregates are first loaded onto a scale which moves back and forth on rails. Once the carefully measured amounts of aggregates have been added to the scale, it stops over a hopper, also called a skip hoist, and dumps the aggregates into it. The pigments that color the concrete mix have already been added to the aggregates during this process. The skip hoist then takes these raw ingredients way up to the mixer platform and dumps its contents into a mixer. Cement powder is added and the dry ingredients are mixed thoroughly. Water is then added very precisely to get the mix to just the right consistency. To make pavers of more than one color, differently colored concrete mixes are made and then deposited on a long conveyor belt in a specific pattern. This conveyor belt heads toward the paver machine and drops these colored mixes into a feed hopper. From this control room, the operators can control every aspect of the manufacturing process through touch screens and keyboards. A feed box filled with concrete from the feed hopper glides over the mold and in one sweep fills each individual mold cavity. Then a large machine head mounted with individual paver stamps that perfectly fit the mold cavities comes down on top of the freshly deposited concrete and through a combination of pressure and vibration packs the fresh concrete in the mold. The head stays in position and the mold lifts up, freeing the pavers from the mold, dropping them onto a production board. The pavers have just enough strength to keep their shape for the next step of the process. From here, they are moved out of the machine on another conveyor and are taken to another room. This room is called a kiln. Once the production boards enter this warm and moist room, they are stacked up and transported into racks to harden. The production pallets filled with pavers are moved in and out of the curing racks by what's called a finger cart. After 24 hours, they are hard enough to be taken out of the kiln and moved on to the packaging line. The packaging line has many steps to complete before the pavers are ready to ship to customers. The packaging process includes squeezing each layer together into a compact size and then stacking the individual layer on top of each other into bundles consisting of between 5 to 10 layers depending on the thickness of the pavers. The empty production boards follow a separate track where they are cleaned, flipped over, stacked, and taken back to the machine for another round of paver production. The freshly stacked bundles of pavers are first covered with a plastic top sheet to keep the rain and dirt out, and then strapped tightly together. Finally, they are picked up and placed onto a wood shipping pallet. And just before they leave the building, a label is glued to the top sheet with all the information necessary to make sure the right product gets to the customer.